Hey guys, this is Dan with Gears and Gadgets. Thanks for tuning in, back with another video a day until this channel hits 100K. Now I've spent the last week in the garage wiring up all of my aftermarket lights on my 2024 GMC Sierra, and I've spent a ton of time configuring this to be exactly the way that I wanted it to be. Some might call it overkill, but as a gadget guy, I like to have a ton of configurability when it comes to the lighting and electrical accessories on my truck. None of this was sponsored. I purchased every single product that you guys are seeing. These are the rigid DSS side shooters, SS standing for side shooter. This is a combo beam pattern. They have 3 LEDs that shoot a light pattern off directly to the side, which for ditch lights, that is exactly what you want. And when you buy these in a pair, what you don't want is side shooters on both sides. So they actually block off this side so that you don't have a bunch of light reflecting back up into your eyes while you're driving. And I'll tell you, the beam pattern cutoff on this is perfect. I've also wired these up individually. I'll show you guys the switch panel here in a minute, which is the pride and joy of this entire build. So these, again, rigid DSS side shooters. I'll link those down below. And the brackets I picked up from Addictive Desert Designs. They're actually relatively local to me. I would love to check out their shop, but they make these brackets that fit directly onto the hood itself. You just need to be very careful that when you're disconnecting the hood hinges, that you're supporting that hood and it doesn't fall back and smash your windshield, which can theoretically happen, but all in, pretty simple install there. Now, coming down here, we've got our fog lights. These are actually in a whole kit that was sold by, I think it's called Mid-South LEDs. I replaced the OEM LED, which is honestly trash for a fog light, and replaced it with this. This comes with the Diode Dynamics SSC2s, and this is in a combo beam pattern. It actually sold it with a fog light beam pattern, but with the switch panel that I have installed to run this whole thing, I can actually dim these lights down. So technically these are not a legal fog light, but I can dim them down quite a bit to the point where they're actually not bad running on the road on. And this is the kind of controllability that I hate that you don't have OEM. What I did was I actually set the switch panel up to tap into the lights. So when the lights turn on, the fog lights automatically come on. That is something you could not do with the OEM setup. Coming around to the rear here, this is a setup that I absolutely love. And honestly, I would have never wired this up like this had this bracket from Range Industries not existed. This bracket, honestly, I think is actually probably underpriced, 50 bucks for a pretty beefy metal bracket. It mounted up these Baja Design S2s that I've had in the garage for actually a couple of years now. I had them for a previous build that I didn't end up using, and they just sat. It's dimmable, so I can use this as like a camping light. This right now is a combo drive beam pattern, which I think actually throws light too far to the rear. I'm probably gonna switch this out to more of either like a fog pattern or maybe like a work light. I'm not too sure. I'll probably swap that out at some point, but I love those. And what you'll see here, if I double tap my switch panel, we've got ourselves kind of like a chase light slash hazard light, something along those lines. I'm not sure how much I'll use it, but I think it looks pretty awesome. I will absolutely use the ability to light up to the rear of the truck though, all of the time. Something like that comes in real handy when you're hitching up trailers at night. A lot of these trucks don't really have good work lighting to the rear. So Range Industries, I think that's pretty cool. Super easy install. And before we get to the switch panel, I'll show you guys one last party trick that I have in terms of the lighting. Not only can I strobe to the rear, but I also have this set up so the fronts, if I double tap each individual light and then the fogs, double tap those. But I also have a Z-Flash light flasher, which will also flash all of the lights on the truck. This is not something that you can run street legal at all, but it is something you can use on private property. And I've mentioned this before that I used to use the light flashers all the time when I was doing construction drone work. If I showed up to a job site somewhere and put the drone up, I always like to have the flashers on. Now the other thing too is that these lights, the ditch lights and the fog lights, are at 100% brightness right now. If I were to set those at 50 or 10%, they'll flash at a dimmer light level, which I think is better that way, because honestly, at night, this is so bright that if you had these things strobing, it's almost too much. So with that said, let's jump into the cab and show you the star of the show. This is the SP9100. I did a whole install video on this. Yes, I cut it into the headliner of my truck. It was pretty ballsy. I went for it, and I love the way this turned out. It's actually perfectly situated in terms of where I want to reach for it as a driver, my line of sight, everything. Perfect, absolutely perfect. So the lighting is one thing, but I've also got this thing attached to my radar detector, my dash camera. The hazard lights are the strobes you just saw from Z-Flash. The radio is this Uniden SD100. That is actually great. I've got it hooked up to a rear speaker. It is a Midland amplified speaker, and I always go with the amplified because I want to, when I turn the switch off, have that speaker shut off. And if I open up back here, you'll see it is just cut in to the little storage container I have for the back of my truck. And that is a spot that I've just always found to work out really well for an auxiliary speaker. I like to have all this stuff switched so that when I'm driving, if I get a phone call, a lot of this stuff is making a lot of noise and it's just distracting. If you're on the phone, you've got this stuff beeping. So it's nice when I'm on a phone call to be able to shut off the radar detector, kill the camera if I don't want to be recording the audio of whatever call it is I'm on, turn off my radio, and then I've got silence in the cab. I can have my phone call, and then when I'm done, turn on my scanner, turn on my camera, turn on my radar, and all of that stuff will come right back alive. And then of course, to be able to control the ditch lights, I love having a left and right control for those ditch lights, because there's a lot of situations where you're out on the road where maybe you only want to light up one side. That's kind of more like my work brain thinking. So it is nice to have that individual controllability. And then of course the fog lights and the reverse lights. The other nice thing about this is that with the fog lights, when I turn on my headlights, the fog lights automatically come on. That is something that you could not do before. So again, headlights on, fog lights on, headlights off, fog lights off. That's pretty dope. So this configurability within this app is mind-blowing. The number of things you can do in terms of setting up each individual input to run on either battery or ignition, to have delays. My fog lights currently, when they're on, when the truck shuts off, they stay on for an extra minute to provide exterior lighting. The camera runs for an extra couple of minutes when the truck shuts off because it's just nice to have the camera run for a few minutes after you get out. The radar detector just shuts off immediately. And then the camera and radar detector are set for memory and ignition, so when the truck turns on, they just always come on. You can really get super crazy about how this all sets up. Now, because it is a solid state electrical panel, you do not need to fuse any of your inputs. It's basically all done digitally, and you can set the voltage. So most of my stuff is only running on 5 volts because it doesn't need the full, I mean, most of my lights are pretty energy efficient. It's all LEDs. All the interior stuff, it's just all set to 5 volts. So if it spikes above that, it's going to trip it and it won't continue providing power. So kind of like a built-in short protection, and I think that's also pretty rad. So I spent a ton of time wiring this thing up the way that I want it, and now it is 100% done. So one thing I love about this whole GMC Sierra, speaking specifically to this truck, more over than my F-150, is that it's very cockpit fighter jet layout style of construction, and then having the Switch Pros panel up here, it just feels very command center-ish. I absolutely love this entire setup. So with that being said, thank you guys very much for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, please hit that subscribe button down below. Remember, likes go a long way to help support the channel. I will see you guys next time.